Say good morning to Timothy Martin in the studio with me from the St. Kitts and Nevis Fire Rescue Department. Good morning, sir. How are you doing today?
Good morning, JQ. I am fine, thank you.
Great,
Good
man.
morning, listening audience.
Yes. Welcome once again. Welcome once again.
Thank you very much.
What's on the agenda for this morning, sir?
Well, for this morning, I want to look at heat transfer, the way in which fire spreads. Now, the way in which fire spreads is intertwined with how heat spreads. So we're going to look at the heat and then we're going to understand the way in which fire burns and how it also spreads.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
If we don't interrupt you. We don't interrupt.
Now, fire heat rather is spread in three ways. So you have radiation, conduction, and convection. So those are the three ways in which heat is spread. Hence, the three ways in which fire is also spread. Right. All right. Get that out the way. Okay, so we're going to take them step by step, and then, we look into some examples and things like that as well. So thermal energy transfer is heat moving from a warmer object to a cooler object. So that's the first thing. Now, let's look, for example, a pot that is on a stove. So the fire heats the pot. Then the pot will in turn heat up, and whatever is in it, let's say some soup, for example. So then the soup would get heated through the thermal energy, all right, which is being transferred. The pot handle, that also, because of thermal energy, would also be heated due to the pot being heated by the fire that is on the stove. Okay? So again, the three ways is conduction, convection, and radiation. So let's look at convection, for example. Now, convection is the spread of heat in an upward motion. So let's say somebody is over a campfire. The hands are cold. They put the hand over the fire. The heat rises and warms their hand. All right. For conduction rather, somebody put a piece of metal. They have a metal in a fire. The fire heats the metal, and then it would also burn the individual because the heat would transfer to the metal, and the area where the person is holding will eventually get hot, and it will burn them. Radiation now is by the rays, the heat rays that is being emitted from the heat source. Okay? So the definition for conduction, heat is transferred from one particle of matter to another in an object. So the same thing applies like what I was talking about. Another example, let's say you have a frying pan on the fire. You have some eggs inside, whatever food. Then, because of the upward movement of the heat, it heats up the food, which is conduction. And that is by direct contact. All right? So it's the same as you have a pot of boiling water. Now, what do you think would happen if you put a spoon inside there? Let it sit a little while and then try to take up that spoon.
Yeah, it's hot.
It's hot, right? So by way of conduction rather, you would have the spoon heating up and would burn you. Same applies, you have a hamburger. You do a nice, delicious hamburger. The meat is really hot, just off the frying pan. You put it in the bread, and you rest a cheese on top of it. Now what happens to the cheese?
Melts.
The cheese melts. So because the cheese was in direct contact with the heat, it melted. All right. So that is another example of conduction. Now convection is the movement that transfers heat within fluids. All right. So heat is transferred by currents within fluids, gases. Sorry. So the examples of convection. Now you have, let's say in your home, you have a heating source. Then the heat that is generated from the heating source, it would eventually spread to other areas of the room. All right. If you have an upstairs and downstairs, the upstairs might be a bit warmer than the downstairs. Okay, that is because convection, the heat travels upward. Remember sometime I was on this show where I think it was last week when I had a match, and you scratch the match, you put it upright, then the flame runs up the matchstick. Right, convection in an upward movement. So fire now burns in an upward and outward motion. So it comes off like a V, a V pattern, a V shape. When you look at, let's say, for example, a mountainside, a hillside,
Right.
on fire, look at the pattern of how the fire spreads on the hill. You would see that V-shaped pattern where the fire starts here and it then spreads outward and upward. If the fire starts at the top of the hill, it would take a lot longer for it to get to the bottom of the hill because fire burns slower going down. But if it starts at the bottom of the hill, it races up in no time. You get that V move, that V pattern that I spoke about.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any.
No, for the
questions?
moment, no. I've just taken in the information.
Okay. Convection as well, in terms of the way air is heated. If you look at the ocean versus the land, for an example. Now, during the day, the sun heats up the earth. All right. The ocean is a lot cooler, so you find that the breeze coming off the ocean is cool. So it's coming off the ocean in a low-lying area. It's cool. Then it heats up the land, heats up that breeze. It goes up in the air, and then it would circulate back over to the ocean where it is cooler. So it's like one attracting the next. All right. Okay. Now, radiation, a lot of persons, they are aware of the radiation aspect, all right? Because we get this a lot of persons say, oh, it fire in the night, you know, it could be from glass bottles that was heated by the sun and things like that. So they have a general idea as to radiation and what can happen. However, radiation does not occur at night in terms of the sun's rays, because there is no sun. All right. Now, in the day, for example, now the sun is heating the surface of the earth. So the sun's rays through radiation heats whatever metal object. In the case of a glass bottle, it penetrates through the glass bottle, creating what we call a prism. And once that prism is angled correctly enough, then a fire could be started. Okay. All right, so uh, the heat rays, for example, now, in terms of a campfire, you don't have to be too close to the campfire, but you would feel the effects of the fire. And that again is through radiation. The heat is radiating from the source of the fire and causing to warm other areas. So those are the three ways in which heat can be transferred. So again, you have convection, you have conduction, and radiation. Convection is the upward movement of air currents, hot air. Conduction is by direct contact. And another example I could draw with conduction is, let's say that you're a home, for example. You have fire in the basement, right? You have some metal pipes running through your home. And this, the fire is heating the metal pipe. All of a sudden, there might be a fire in your first floor. So it is basement and it is first floor. All of a sudden, fire is in the first floor in an area that is not directly over where the fire is. But because the piping might have gone across the room, and whatever material the pipe is attached to, it's
flammable.
Right, it's flammable. Then over time, when that metal heats up, or the piping heats up, then it would eventually reach to the point where that material catches fire.
Is that a form of radiation?
That's a form of conduction, because touching. Radiation, no, it doesn't have to be any kind of touching going on. For example, the saying again, like I said last week, I think it was, if your house is on fire, if your neighbor's house is on fire, wet your own. Radiation applies in that regards. Your neighbor's house is on fire. Because the fire is so intense, the flames have not reached over to your house. However, the heat that is being transferred between there
can cause a fire.
Can cause a fire on your property. And just by that heat alone.
And more than likely, if you're living in a board house, a board is flammable.
Of course.
So that's where you said throw water in your neighbor house. Okay.
So you can have a concrete structure. Most concrete houses, they have fascia boards on the attached to the roof. Those would be the first to catch.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Timothy, we're out of time this morning. A short one for us, and I do apologize.
No problem.
We have to break away and get ready for our live coverage this morning for CPL. How things going with you guys on that, man? Everything going good?
Yes, man. We are part of CPL. We go and we render our services in terms of getting persons and keeping the venue safe. Yes.
Indeed. Any last words from you?
We can call it that for today.
All right, man. Timothy, thanks for being here as usual. Thanks to our viewers, thanks to our listeners. I do hope you learned something. I did myself, listening intensely, if I could put it that way, and trying to make sure I get the analogy. That's why you see the look on my face. I'm trying to make sure I understand what each of those terminology means.
Convection, conduction, and radiation.
Yeah, you stopped me from showing off just now. But it's okay. It's okay. 6 minutes over to our we catch you next week. Same time, same place?
Same time, same place.
All right, man. And to our listeners and viewers, keep it locked. I encourage you to join us via radio, though. We have this morning coverage of the game. Trinbago Knight Riders versus St. Lucia Kings. That's coming up in just a bit. The commentary has already started. And this morning coverage will be coming to your compliments. Gem Radio 5, National Bank always here, Skellig, your power company, and Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis, making a sustained positive difference in your life. Going to take a break, and we'll be back with some ball-by-ball commentary